And welcome in to a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller. And let's dive in. Do you want to tell our audience about this week's episode, Brett?
Absolutely. I may have hinted about it last week and said, hey, this could come up next off season. Then we realized we had a gap in the schedule. So it is the Survivor Pearl Islands season recap show. Kind of like we've done before for Gabon, for Australian Outback, for Borneo. We're going to be talking all about Pearl Islands, which I know is one of the fan base's most popular seasons. Has some amazing characters, some twists that will never be forgotten in the history of Survivor. Probably one of the most epic betrayals that we've ever had, and some amazing theming.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'll start with where you finished. The theming is incredible. Everything is pirate themed. I love it. Even like down to the challenges. And like we've talked about, that's one of the things I love about my favorite season, China's, how the challenges are tied to the theme and the location. And if you have challenges that are
Survivor. Go ahead.
you have challenges that are pirate themed, like the musket or whatever the gun was shooting one and things like that. It's just fantastic.
The immunity idol is a pirate saber as opposed to a necklace.
Yeah, it's great.
One thing that I just find was so well done by production on this season, specifically about the theming, is if I look it up, I did it right before the episode, but the filming dates of this season, when they actually were in Panama playing the game as opposed to what we saw on TV, was June 23rd to July 31st, 2003.
Interesting.
If I look up what I'm about to talk about, what makes this, at least in my mind, so fun is that the release date of Walt Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, was June 28th, 2003. So at this point, CBS, I almost get a sense that this is like a precursor to what the challenge is doing for 40, really capitalizing off Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, with Battle of the Eras. And this is CBS taking the legendary Johnny Depp movie that was running American culture back at the time and being let's film a season of Survivor based off that right now.
Yeah. First off, love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I don't remember if I saw the last one or not, but all the other ones besides the very last one I know I've seen. Great series. Love Pirates of the Caribbean. But yeah, that's a great point. I never really thought about that. That first movie came out around this same time as Pearl Islands. So
On the beach when it premiered.
yeah. So that's fantastic. That makes a lot of sense though. I bet that was on purpose.
100%.
But yeah. So who are some of your favorite and least favorite characters from the season and players?
Um, I mean, favorites, we've got to put up short individual segments for the big players. Sandra, of course, the Queen, Fair Play, Rupert. But there's some other players that I think deserve some recognition in this episode tonight that I want to talk about. Dara as a challenge beast is a great name there. Krista played an amazing game. Savage is a player we see come back later. The outcasts are so important to this season, and I'm sure we'll do a whole segment just on the twist.
Yeah.
Even if I look at some of the early boots, players like Nicole went so early for playing the game too hard. If you can do that anymore, she just played so early in the franchise. What do you think about some of these players?
Yeah, I that's a good point about Nicole. I like her. She has a funny moment on the boat at the marooning that's kind of funny, but she did. She was playing too aggressive at the time, but nowadays the way she played, if she were to do that now, no one would bat an eye. So kind of ahead of our time, I guess. The original version of what led to this show was, and I think I've said this on here, was I used to have run a Survivor fan page on Instagram. It's still active and I get on there, I just don't post. But I went through and did kind of my thoughts on each season years ago on there. And I have my Pearl Islands post up and I have my tier list from that pulled up. My top 4 favorites were Sandra, Rupert, Dara, and then Krista. You mentioned Dara. I love her. She has a great quote of John is lying all the time except when he's telling the truth. Which, like, yeah, those are the 2 options, so I guess that's true, but, like, didn't really
It's true
accomplish
for
anything by
everybody.
saying that. Krista is underrated. You don't hear her talked about much. It was kind of Sandra's closest ally, I could argue. Her or Rupert. My bottom 2, my second to least favorite, and if I rewatched Pearl Island in 2022, I think, and I didn't redo the tiers. So I'm kind of trying to think on the spot, but this still stands. My second least favorite is Fair Play, and my least favorite is Lil. Just for different reasons. Fair Play because I'll put it this way: I get lying, and that's part of the game, and I'm okay with that in the game. I feel like as somebody who lost 2 cousins when I was in high school, lying, like predetermining a lie for no reason that you lost someone, it kind of goes too far in my opinion.
Makes
So that,
sense.
but also just who Fair Play is. I'm just not a fan for whatever reason. He's a great character, but and then Lil, I just she seems like a really sweet person, but if I was on the island with her, she would drive me insane. The constantly needing to be reassured of every little thing, and every time like she does anything and someone doesn't love it, she feels bad. Lil would be exhausting to me.
With me, the 2 players I rank low, I agree with you on Lil. I really like Fair Play this season. We just have a different perspective on him. In contrast to that, Fair Play's number 1 ally, Burton. I actually didn't really like. I think it's just him getting another chance in the game, and I'm sure we'll talk about the twist. And then, I mean, there has to be a separate category, at least in probes reactions, and I have to agree with Jeff at the time more so than Jeff in 45, where Austin has to be the least favorite character of the season
Yeah.
because he simply quit.
Yeah, and I meant to mention that earlier and forgot. Pearl Islands does give us our first quitter in the history of the show with Austin, who spells it Osten. I think he's the only one I've seen spell it that way, so good for him. What a memorable run Austin had on Survivor, though. He had the shorts that just wouldn't stay up during a challenge, so all of his male tribe mates decided to show unity and support him by getting rid of their shorts also. To which place we get the one production did great here because it was a race. So we would have the little Drake is ahead, and then we have the little it says Morgan behind, and it's from behind after the guys drop their shorts, and it's all they're behind that are blurred out. So we'll have that picture on our socials at some point this next week, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
Austin had the thing with the shorts. He had an ongoing rivalry with a pelican, one of the great rivalries of this season. So he didn't last long. He quit pre-merge, and he did quit, but memorable run for Austin, I would argue.
Pre-merge players before we move on to the merge characters specifically that you at least thought might have been decent players who had a good chance? Because I personally always thought, in addition to I mentioned Nicole already, but that Michelle and Trish were both playing the game too on Drake.
Yeah, and I will say this. Not in the category of people I thought would be good players, but are kind of memorable. And I actually sided with Fair Play over this person, but early on Drake Drive, Fair Play had a rivalry with Sean. I actually was not sad to see Sean go either.
I was not either. It's interesting that we're just on this topic of pre-merge players. I just wanted to bring up Trish quickly, where I mentioned her, because I actually had a discussion during the lockdown at some point on Instagram with Fairplay. And I have to agree with him that as when we see that clip of Rupert just screaming, "Who the hell voted for me at Fairplay?" Um, ultimately, like the move or not, and I was cheering for Rupert at the time, watching it growing up. That was a good move for Fairplay and Trish to decide to make to get rid of Rupert right before the merge, where he's both good at challenges and very likable.
Yeah, it was smart. Like, and that's enough. This season has a lot of like iconic or memorable show moments, and
Yeah.
that's one of them of Rupert just going berserk, which we it basically did the same thing that Lex did in Africa. He just found his answer quicker, but he
And
was
shout out to
more
another
insane
show
about it
moment.
somehow.
Shout out to another show moment right on at this part of the game, because it's one thing that will always make me laugh no matter how many times I see it. And that's Probst looking at Fairplay in the middle of Tribal and asking him if he's drunk.
Yeah, I have no actual basis for this other than just interactions on the show and like comments here and there at reunions. But I feel like Probst genuinely doesn't like fair play sometimes.
And I don't think it's, I think it's mutual.
But
But that was just too funny of a moment, too, because ultimately it's not even a reward that, like, say that they went to a reward or nothing. It was just they gave them that money in the Panamanian village to spend stuff. And Burton and Fairplay, at the spot that they both were in life, decided it was a good idea to buy rum as opposed to buy survival supplies.
yeah, well, that's kind of par for the course. This is kind of off topic, but it's fair play, so not really. And it's him and Jeff, which kind of plays along with our conversation a few minutes ago. The premiere of Micronesia. When Fair Play comes out and he's wearing the hat and he's wearing the blue button up, and the interaction is Probst asks Fairplay if he's dressed like him. And I believe Fairplay's response was it was some Probst line, like want to know what you're playing for or something like that. And Probst's response was it's nice to see you have aspirations beyond your current place in life. Or something like I might not be quoting it exactly, but I'm like, geez.
Yeah, pretty spot on.
Like Probst came out of nowhere really hard there, and it's hilarious, but I was not expecting that the first time I watched that episode.
So, I also don't think until Micronesia do we really see what the relationship really looked like.
Yeah. Well, and he ends up
And then
quitting it. So
we have Fairplay's attire at the Marooning, and we have Fairplay quitting, and we have this whole issue about whether Fairplay needed medication he wasn't provided through professional wrestling at the time, and having an injury right before the game. And clearly everything went south between Probst and Fairplay at the start of that season, I think with far more so than in Pearl Islands.
but the thing is, and there's a reunion somewhere where Fairplay's sitting in the audience and the camera shows him, and I think the crowd boos him. But the thing that I don't get with Micronesia is, and I'll only talk about this for a little bit so we can get back on topic. It's now the story's out of, oh, he had some sort of injury and there was a mix up, production wouldn't give him his medicine. But at the time, the story we're seeing is, oh, I've got a kid coming soon. I feel like a bad father being out here. So when did the story switch? Like,
I think one was the story that Fairplay chose to give on the TV, and the other one was what came out online for years after the fact.
Fair enough. And to be fair, Yao Man did kind of tackle him straight into a boat. So, but no,
That is true.
I'm not his biggest fan, but he is a legend of the game because of Pearl Islands. I when it's impressive. It's an impressive comment on his Pearl Islands game that he quit Micronesia in episode 1 and is still such a legend of the game. Like I gotta admit that. Like he came out firing, very memorable character, very cutthroat, and
We've gone over the cast relatively. Do you want to get started and start talking about the season, starting from the Mooney?
yeah, one more cast thing. I wanted to get your thoughts on Krista. I know I mentioned her, but I didn't really hear your thoughts there.
I think Kristen played a very good game. The Rupert blindside completely stopped her chance of winning because Sandra was just playing that much more aggressively that she could get herself to the end. As we see, like with the fish, Krista is clearly an ally of Sandra, but Sandra is willing to use her vote in order to get to the end far more than she is the other way. Um, so I think she had a chance to go far while Rupert was in the game. Once he left the game, Krista's game was essentially all but over. However, I do think she's a good player, and I would have liked to see her get another shot. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
Yeah. So going into the marooning, I like this marooning. It catches them off guard. They're on a boat. The players were told they were going somewhere to do some promo shots or something like that. And they get called up to the top deck, and Prop says, "We're starting the game now. You get nothing other than the clothes on your back."
Um, I love the fact in this spot that they included the location, that they included the locals, that they brought them into a Panamanian fishing village on Saboga Island. I've been able to find this village on Google Earth. Someday I want to go to the Pearl Islands when I'm on a Panama Canal cruise or whatnot. Um, but no, I really like this ballooning. The only thing I maybe didn't like about it as much is I don't know, you tell me, but what did you have the initial reaction when you watched this for the first time, even without knowing? Like you probably knew that Sandra won, but did you have the initial reaction in episode 1 of wow, these tribes are just unbalanced?
Not a ton. I mean, a little bit, but my reaction with this marooning was just watching players' reactions who, like, they caught them off guard. Savage is wearing a suit jacket. Like,
Yeah,
Nicole is left,
and
and
a very expensive one at that.
yeah, Nicole is wearing what, a strapless dress, some sort of dress that.
Yeah.
So it's wild. And I was kind of watching their reactions. Moving into the village, because you mentioned that. This is where we mentioned the pirate theme. Nobody played into the pirate theme more than the guy that looks like Blackbeard himself, which is Rupert. And this
Yeah.
really started here at the village, where both tribes had each tribe had this weird little tiny like raft thing. And Morgan tribe had left all their shoes in theirs and walked away. And this is where Rupert really starts buying into the pirate thing of we're pirates, pirates steal, and takes all of Morgan's tribe's shoes to trade and sell them in the village, which is hysterical.
Who had to have, when he gave that confessional, got the sense, probably knowing a bit of history, that when they told them your tribe names are Morgan and Drake, it had to have clicked with Rupert of, oh, this is a pirate show.
Well, when they gave the tribe names, they said your tribes are named after famous pirates.
That makes sense. Then I missed that.
But yeah, this was great. I think it's hilarious. And also, Drake tribe has Sandra, who knows how to speak Spanish, which is very helpful, and was able to figure out that one of the people in the village might have had a crush on one of her tribe mates.
I was just going to say to that. Not only does the Drake tribe have Sandra, who can speak the language, but the Drake tribe also has Trish, who apparently has some negotiating power in this village.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the other tribe is busy getting into arguments with the shop owners and the locals. It just Drake kills it in this fishing village with the trading and the buying, and Morgan really struggles here. And this is really how the first few episodes go of this season: is Drake does well, Morgan struggles, wash, rinse, repeat.
And that did really come down to Sandra. She was able to get far more than the Morgan tribe could with the resources that she had because she could barter in their language. And therefore, the locals knew that from at least in the Drake side, they had a set budget from the show. I'm sure off camera, Sandra probably tells them, we're on a TV show, we have $100. Where the locals are not going, oh, these people are just tourists, like they probably were with the Morgans.
Yeah, and the Morgans kind of got frustrated and got an attitude about it also, and were like arguing as they negotiated, which I'm sure didn't help them any.
Sure not. There isn't much in this game that helps Morgan advance their tribe further, really anywhere.
Yeah, it's all the Pelicans' fault. But so yeah, where do you want to go to next? Great first episode, great marooning, one of my favorite maroonings.
I don't know if you have anything in episode 2 or 3. If not, I want to go to the throne challenge.
Okay.
First of all, I just love this challenge. I know it's not really something that they can do much anymore in a more politically correct age, but having them making chess moves and having to strategically move across the board, but at the same time also making it a physical challenge where if two players intersect, they get a chance to whoever can physically throw the other one into the water gets to advance. Such a great combination of both brute strength and strategy in the same challenge.
It's nice to
But
see people battling over water and be able to understand that you don't choke someone and grab them by the neck. Because Rob Zabotnik in
Zabotnik.
Thailand could not figure that out in like 3 tries. So,
And at the same time, to that group's credit, at least this one didn't have this confusing rule about an attack zone that clearly production failed to make sure the players understood.
I mean, yeah, just everything about Thailand is either confusing or annoying. Other than the episode where one tribe lost their boat. That's always hilarious to me.
That sure is. But as I always say about seasons like Thailand and seasons like Nicaragua and Fiji, a bad season of Survivor is still better than 99.9% of the stuff on a US television today.
Yup. Except for Cobra Kai, new season of that dropped the day we're recording this, and I can't wait to watch that. Because I don't know if I've said this on this show. You know this, but my favorite movie is the first Karate Kid movie. So I love that universe. I love the things that tie to it. So, but yeah, another chat. While we're talking about challenges, a pre-merge challenge I like, and I don't remember where it's at, but each tribe's lightest member is being dangled over the ocean, and they're like
Episode 2.
dig into the sand and hold their people, and it ends up as a one-on-one battle between Rupert and someone. Is it Austin, maybe?
Austin. Yeah, Austin.
And it's Dara, and I forget who it is for the other tribe. Who? Yeah. So they're just dangling up there, and this is a great challenge to watch. It looks uncomfortable for everyone, whether you're having to hold the person up or you're the person just tied into a rope and a harness and just have to dangle there in an awkward position. But as a viewer, it's fun
So
to watch. It's interesting to see who's going to outlast the other.
it is. And it was pretty even too, because I think Dara and Michelle are roughly similar in size when they filmed this.
Yeah, probably.
Well, back to episode 4. What's neat here is unfortunately we don't really get to see all this strategy that I was talking about play out, because Burton decides to throw the challenge, hoping to get rid of Rupert, but in turn he eliminates himself.
Yeah, that's why you don't throw challenges. You never know what's going to
That's
go
right.
sideways. Unless you're
Absolutely.
Zapatera, in which case you're a really annoying tribe anyway, and it's the whole tribe against one person. Like, that
Yeah,
worked out for them. But usually throwing challenges goes sideways somehow.
absolutely it does.
It worked out in China too, I guess, but it
Yeah.
almost
That
never.
was that was different though, because they were swapping players and instantly making them the minority on their new tribes. So
Which I have always hated the swap kidnap twist, but after Todd
yeah,
explained to us that they tied it to the theme and of the Art of War, I don't hate it as much. Like it
yeah,
kind,
agreed.
but yeah, the strategy is great. Burton decides to throw a challenge, ends up going home, and Rupert lasts a little bit longer. But Burton doesn't stay out though.
And then from there, we have Michelle go home in a fairly unimportant fashion. And then we get that move that I already talked about, where once again, Rupert's targeted because I think they're starting to get the idea that he's going to be the most popular player in the franchise. And Fairplay and Trish target him, but the Sandra Krista Rupert alliance is too strong, and ends up having Sean vote with them to take Trish out, as opposed to um, having to be tied and potentially lead to drawing rocks.
Yeah.
And that leaves us in a situation where we get something that will always be polarizing in the survivor community, no matter who you talk to, and that's the outcast twist. What are your thoughts on this, Bruce? Because we talked about doing an episode on twists, and I guess I don't really think we got around to it. So I'm
We
curious
did.
to know what you think. We should still do that next off season.
No, we've done this. We did Redemption Twist at least. We did Outcast,
Oh,
Redemption Island, and Edge of Extinction.
that's right. I was thinking of Twist as a whole, so no, that makes sense. I remember doing that episode.
Yeah, we did Redemption Twist. I'm trying to think of what I said on that episode so I don't contradict myself. I like the Outcast twist. I feel like of the three, it's the I would say Redemption Island is the least broken actually, because you have to keep re-earning your spot. But
I agree.
Outcast twist ends pre-merge though, and it only does it once, so I appreciate that. I still don't like that, like, you're out and you're just automatically given this chance in a battle back eventually. I do like with Redemption Island, you have to keep earning it and earning it until the battle back, and only two people earn their spot there. But no, the Outcast twist was really fun. And also, it wasn't just you get back into the game because of a physical challenge. It gives people that aren't as physically inclined, like Skinny Ryan, for example, or Lil, who gets back in, a chance to get back in. Because, I mean, first off, the Outcasts had to earn the chance to vote people back in. If they finished
What
second in
I
the
just was
challenge,
gonna say is the thing I like about this is that if the outcast come third in the challenge, the twist is dead.
yeah. But they finished first, they beat both tribes, they get to vote two people back in. And that's
And that
exactly what.
leads me to the thing I don't like is I know that Jeff said they've been living in the same conditions, but we didn't see the outcasts on any beach. So that makes me ask questions of how much of the same conditions were they really living in? Because yes, Putin is a great physical competitor, but I don't see that tribe of six being able to win this challenge if they were actually playing Survivor.
I think they were. I think the reason they production didn't show it to us wasn't to trick us because they wanted that shock factor of when they come walking back in. With the first Edge of Extinction season, we as the audience knew Edge existed, but the players didn't. So when the Edge people came back in on that first battle back, all the players still in the game were shocked and had their jaws on the floor. I think with Outcast at the time, they wanted the audience to have that reaction. And
Makes sense.
because of
I get
conversations like this, they realized that that's not the best idea. They need to be showing us everything. And so that changed by the time 38 and 22 came around. But
exactly. And I think if let's hypothetically say that this twist was like done today, that could almost even be something that you could just release later onto YouTube.
yeah, like Ponderosa.
Exactly. But it wasn't a thing back then, of course.
Was YouTube even a thing back then?
No.
People are old. I was only 3. But yeah, the Outcast twist is fun. And once they secure the 2 returnee spots, it's not just, oh, you're physical, you get back in. The Outcasts go to tribal council and voted 2 people in. You can't vote for yourself. You get 2 votes. And Burton gets in and Lil gets in. And they get to draw buffs to find out what tribe they're going to. They both end up going to the tribe that voted them out. But I'm
Yeah.
really curious what would have happened if Lil had pulled the blue buff and if Burton had pulled the orange one.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. The thing that I guess it didn't really matter, and the fact is that they merged right after.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
So I think it was really just for shock value. And then they also, which I hated this element of it, is that they gave both the outcast immunity in their first vote.
Yeah, that is weird. They do it in
That makes it
38 too. They give
that,
Evans and Underwood both idols when they re-enter the game.
that too. It did make it interesting though, because by a split second, Burton wins immunity, even though he already has immunity, and therefore chooses to give his immunity idol, or his immunity sword, I mean, to his real arch nemesis in the game, and that's Rupert, because the two of them were battling it out and won it by literally Burton beat Rupert by probably milliseconds. I'm sure production had to look at that photo before they gave him the actual winning scene.
Yeah, for sure. And is Burton the one also that during the like word anagram word search one, Jeff declares him the winner, and as they're leaving, realizes, oh wait, you had this word twice, you didn't actually win, or you misspelled this word. So weird season for Burton with individual immunity challenges.
Yeah.
But yeah, I I don't mind Burton. I just feel like we didn't get a ton from him. I feel like we got a ton of fair play, and Burton was just kind of Robin to fair play's Batman, if you will. Like I feel like we didn't get much from him, much content on him other than oh he works with fair play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he thought he was in the leadership position of that duo, but nobody else really did.
No, production certainly didn't, based on screen time.
Yeah, but fair play is just a screen time gold mine.
It's like Russell. Like I still wish they would have put fair play on heroes versus villains.
Yeah,
Give him
I agree.
Randy's spot. Why is Randy on the villains tribe other than just that he's that he's just one of the grumpiest people I've ever seen on television?
No, you're not wrong.
But like Sandra and Fairplay, they're friends in real life now, but like on Pearl
Right.
Island, they were definitely rivals. So put those two rivals on the villains tribe together. Sandra and Russell
Mm,
quickly developed a rivalry. Like that
An
tribe,
interaction that's an interaction that's gonna always be remembered. I can get loud too. What the bleep?
yeah, which was follow to which Fairplay being annoyed says, "Gosh, all you want is the last word." And Sandra has to reply with, "Stop talking so I can have it then." And we see a confessional of him saying she won't be one of the final two. And I have $1 million that says she won't be the final one. And he, of course, is wrong on that, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so it's it's a great tribe. Drake tribe has so many memorable characters. Morgan tribe has Savage, and that's about it. I mean, that when it comes to like characters and personalities, the tribes were not evenly dispersed here. One tribe was Drake was always going to get more screen time just based on who was there.
Exactly. So right after the merge episode, we have something that's interesting here, and that's that we actually see before getting the opportunity to take someone on a reward, Jeff gives the players that win the opportunity to give away the reward. So Rupert, and this is why I want to bring this up, it's really part of Rupert's downfall because you see, despite being a great character, how bad of a strategist and how loyal to a fault Rupert is going to play this game. But Rupert says Burton gave him immunity, so I'm going to give him my breakfast, as opposed to I'm going to take him with me. And therefore, Burton doesn't take Rupert, he takes Lil on the breakfast.
Uh huh.
At that point, you know that Rupert is screwed because Burton is not even going, okay, he just gave it to me to thank me for immunity. I'll return the favor and take him back.
Yeah, and well played by Burton, but at the same time, if it was anyone other than Rupert, I would say like you if he didn't know he was a target, you really just tipped him off, so not well played. But it's Rupert, and the only strategic thing he did in 4 seasons was put rocks in his pocket one time. So like I don't know what to do with that. And with
Yeah.
Rupert trying to
At
play
this point in the game, we don't know how Rupert is playing because we haven't seen him play 4 seasons.
but hey,
We've
that
seen
one
him play 6 weeks where he's been on top of pretty much every vote. He's been targeted twice, but he's managed to get rid of the people who have been targeting him.
But hey, that one time he was strategic and he did put those rocks in his pocket on here on his 3rd season. Good for him. That was entertaining to watch.
That was
But that was yeah, not very well played by him there. I don't know what to do with that other than just he should have taken Burton with him instead of giving it
exactly.
to him. Who it probably doesn't
And
change
after
how
that,
deep he goes into the game very much, but who knows?
we see something come up which I at least find interesting because I've said many times that this needs to happen on future seasons of Survivor. And that's that touchy subjects is an immunity challenge here, which is won by Rupert.
Yeah, I love that. I love this challenge so much, and it's an entertaining here too. I love it as immunity actually, just kind of something different than what we see it most of the time. And Rupert does win, so he probably would have been going home, I'm guessing, but he saves himself. And
Or are we?
yeah, well, yeah, but and yeah, only ends up being for a week, but who knows? There's been plenty of people that were dead to rights and then won immunity and lasted 3 or 4 more episodes. And Rupert just doesn't have that ability.
At this point, I think the mistake is, and like we say, you're right to say Rupert doesn't have that ability. If I think about this in the context of the new school game, Rupert could take this immunity win and go very far. But this is where he, Sandra, Krista have to go to Ryan, Tawana, and Dara and say, let's make this a 6 and get Burton and Fair Play out of this game.
For sure. Totally agree
That's
with
what
you.
would be happening in the new era.
Uh-huh. And that's just kind of the difference between season 46 and season 7 and how we've seen the game evolve over time. But where we were at the time in Pearl Islands, that hadn't happened yet.
Exactly. So then we've kind of already mentioned it, but next episode, we see Rupert stay Drake strong. In contrast, we see Fairplay and Burton turn on Rupert, Sandra, and Krista and vote Rupert out of the game. And there's all these, you know what's going to happen when Rupert doesn't win the immunity challenge, with all these um, snake stock imagery put up all throughout the episode as if Fair Play was what we now see in like the Reputation era of Taylor Swift's tour.
Yeah. And once him getting voted out leads to something really interesting because they get back to camp and Rupert was Rupert. He was the provider. He was out fishing all the time. We see it in every one of his seasons, other than Blood versus Water, because he's never in the real game in Blood versus Water. But this big container of fish that he had gotten, somebody dumped it out, and it's all gone now. And everyone blames Krista, and Krista's taking the fall for it. And we see in a confessional Sandra admit that she ran ahead of everyone and that she dumped it out because they shouldn't get to eat his fish after taking him out. And this is brilliant because Sandra, even though Krista was her ally, kind of lets Krista take the fall and get a target on her here. Because if Krista goes home, that's just one more person gone that isn't you. That gets you one round closer to the end.
It's this scene that I think is where, even despite the fact that the alliance is now in tatters because Rupert's out of the game, that we really start to see Sandra as a potential winner.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because right here you see, wow, Rupert just left an hour ago, and if Sandra is willing to play Krista's into that position to make sure that she's not caught with it, then at that point, Sandra is willing to play this game at the same level of aggression as a Fair Play.
Yeah.
And she will do whatever it takes to win, does not care. Despite what we've seen earlier from that alliance, because Rupert was seen as the complete opposite.
Yeah, Rupert and Sandra kind of balance each other out in a way. Because Rupert is very like, I want to play the game cleanly, loyal to a fault, so on and so on that we've talked about. And Sandra is, I'll do whatever it takes to win. And as she says in Heroes versus Villains, I'll lie, I'll cheat, I'll steal. I don't care, but I'll at least make up a good, believable lie. I added the word believable in there for some reason, but they really kind
I
of
mean, we're
balance
about
each other
to
out.
talk
They're
about
kind
a
of,
lie that Sandra found out was not believable, so that's fitting.
yeah, they really balance each other out because they're kind of opposites the more you think about it.
Absolutely.
So I love them as a pair and as a duo, and they end up playing together again at the merge and 20 briefly as the heroes are enamored by Russell, and Sandra tries to say no, that he's not what you think, and none of them believe her except Rupert.
Exactly. We'll talk about that interaction next season because I have an episode I want to do next off season where that's going to come up.
Ooh, interesting. We'll talk after we finish recording.
So
But Because we've done a heroes versus villains episode, but that was very final tribal focus, so it'd be fun to return to that season. But yeah, it's Rupert goes home, and this is like letting Krista take the fall for this. It's like you said, this is really where you start to see her as a possible winner for the first time. And her edit really picks up from that point forward.
And then after that, at 6, we see once again another big moment between this rivalry of Sandra and Fairplay, and that's the loved one visit.
Yep. This is the infamous dead grandma lie that everyone believes. Yeah. That was
we don't really
pre-orchestrated from whenever he even left the island, which is kind of impressive, but kind of over the top for no reason at all. And Sandra is the only one that really
we don't need to go a ton into it because I kind of will just be repeating myself from confessionals. But yeah, you're right. Sandra's the only one that's not sold on it, and good for her for being able to point out that, hey, when Sandra does that, you instantly get the sense that, unlike, say, someone like Lil, Sandra is a great player because she knows that when you're in that 39 days or 26 days, Survivor is a 24/7 game. It doesn't take off moments just because somebody's loved one comes out and says their grandma died.
Yeah. Which I would, if I would have been out there, I would have believed it completely. So good for Sandra for being less gullible than me. Which really doesn't mean that much, but good for her nonetheless.
And after that, we have what I think is my favorite episode of the season for sure. One of my favorite episodes of Old School Survivor. And that's the final 5, where Burton wins the car award. He and John go off to Panama City to spend a night in the historic Spanish ruins that were razed to the ground by Captain Henry Morgan, the namesake of the Morgan tribe. And while they're there, we see a 3-way women's alliance between Sandra, Lil, and Dara work its way into the cracks back on the beach. And this is sometimes telling you exactly one thing, especially late in the game. Don't take your whole alliance on a reward. Because if Burton is sitting there and says, I want to take Dara on this reward, great, they'll go off and enjoy the food and he'll get a car and that's that. But because he chose to take his number 1 fair play on this reward, he found the numbers forming against him.
Yeah, for sure. And what's great is the contrast of editing of we see the 3 girls at camp teaming up, realizing that they're 3 out of 5, and that they have the numbers, and agreeing to take one of the guys out. So then the guys being on their reward being like, oh, we're running this thing. They have no idea. They're not smart enough to team up against us. And just seeing them be so incredibly wrong in that moment is kind of funny. But
yeah.
So,
and also we've talked about this in I forgot about this reward recently just because everyone thinks of it as the car reward challenge. But we talked about this with China, with Cambodia, with Africa, getting to see the historic ruins of old Panama City in an overnight reward was such a good placement of the season and of the location right into the show at Final 5.
oh yeah, it's fantastic. I love rewards like this where we get to see the location and see the local culture and like see these ruins. It's fantastic.
Also, I didn't mention it, but whether it's this season or it's All Stars where Mariano gets to give up his video, I love this second chance challenge where they late in the game do an elimination challenge in stages with past challenges that the same players have competed in.
Yeah. I will mention this, by the way, because I just remembered this. It's There's something about this season that didn't get edited into the edit. It's really interesting. If you remember, one of the things Cook Islands is known for is it offered a mutiny that 2 people, Candace and Jonathan Penner, took. I've seen Fairplay say somewhere, I don't know if it was a YouTube clip I was watching of
Yeah, I
his
remember
podcast
this.
or something else. But I have definitely seen and heard Fair Play said, and I think he confirmed this on Survivor Fan Jury in a comment of mine one time because I tagged him in it. They offered pre-merge. They offered a mutiny in Pearl Islands, which makes sense with the pirate theme. Fair Play was urging everyone in the cast to force the merge then and there, which is a brilliant idea, by the way.
That is a brilliant idea.
Everyone mutinies to where they're all in one tribe. What's production gonna do about that? Like, boom, 18-person merge. But well, only 16 run the cast. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Giant
But
merge
like
could have happened.
12-person merge, which I mean we've seen before. Ultimately, at the end of the day, is it ever gonna F up the schedule when you have potentially the need for individual challenges to come 9 days before they thought they did?
I don't know how if it could have messed up their schedule. They've got contingencies for everything, but that just
I'm
would have
sure
been an icon, such another iconic
it
moment.
would have been.
Nobody took the mutiny though, which so it
Yeah.
doesn't make the edit. But little fun facts for you guys if you didn't know that.
And then after Booten goes home, we get into finale.
Yeah, it's a fun finale. And does Dara win the first immunity of the finale? I think.
Derek goes home.
Oh, she does. Okay, well, Dara goes home at the beginning of the finale. Shout out to her. Really fun character. I like her a lot.
Yeah,
Won
absolutely.
3 immunities. That's impressive.
Yeah, she's right up there and someone that doesn't get talked about as much as she should.
Yeah. So she goes home. We have a final 3 of Fair Play, Lil, and Sandra.
Yeah.
And I heard Sandra say this somewhere. The moment she knew she had won was before the final 3 tribal, because before final 3 immunity, maybe, because Fair Play and Lil both came up to her like, Sandra, you and me to the end. And they both wanted to, they didn't want to go with each other. They both wanted to go with Sandra, and that's how she knew she was going to the end and that she was going to win.
Just interesting that Fair Play would make such a bad strategic mistake have had he won the final immunity.
Yeah, I think he just misjudged her completely because I think in his mind he went to the end with 2 goats. I think he thought he was beating either of them.
Yeah, I think you're right there. But I don't think he does beat Sandra. But he definitely beats Lil.
Unfortunately. So I'm glad he didn't take Lil. But
Yeah.
I will say, having him as a winner in the show's history would be hilarious. But Sandra is who she is. The queen stays queen. She would not have become the icon legend of the show that she has become if she doesn't win this season.
Yeah. Looking for a future episode of Tribal Council Chat all about Sandra Diaz Twine coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, we have something we're announcing soon, but not yet.
Yeah. There's a little teaser.
So yeah, but Lil somehow still gets a jury vote, which confuses me every time it crosses my mind. But
I don't know if maybe she just had a personal relationship with Tawana that we didn't see on Morgan or something, but
something like that. I will say for Lil,
has to be.
as as much as she irritates me, the dynamic between her and Andrew Savage is just great. Like it's good television. So
All right, so then I'm sure you all know how it ends. Sandra 6 votes, Lil 1 vote that we just mentioned. Anything else you want to add, Boost, before we get into a line broadside first boot?
wait, Sandra wins? Spoiler alert. No, I don't have anything else for you other than sarcasm.
That's funny.
So, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I am gonna give you the names of 3 players that have got back in the game, seeing we have this outcast twist. So your options are Burton Roberts, Rick Devens, and Natalie Anderson.
I think Natalie's the most dangerous. She's my favorite winner.
She's your favorite winner.
But she has to go first. I'm not beating her. Burton's proven that he can be blindsided, so I'm going to blindside him. And I am going to align with Devin because I think he's crafty and smart, but also just seems like such a fun guy to hang out with, spend time on an island with. Love Rick Devens. Hope he gets back on the show.
I think you're right on all 3 of those.
Yeah, I had him on at least one of my fan casts we've done. You did not, but so love him. So that's my answers to that. What are you doing here?
I think they're the same as you.
Interesting. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with Pearl Islands people. I am going to go with Lil, Sean, and let's go with Austin. Why not?
It's a tough one.
None of them are good options.
But yeah. I'm gonna align with Sean. He seems like someone maybe you could beat, but that show wasn't afraid to make strategic moves and wasn't afraid to get into conflicts. So I'm gonna say he's my best choice there. I'm gonna blindside Austin. He might quit before I blindside him. I think he'd be the type of player who would quit, and if he got a chance to come back out, would probably quit again. But you never know. And therefore, I'm gonna first boot Lil, who, like I said, I just don't know how you would live with her for that long, and she didn't really offer the tribe much of nothing. And it was
No.
disappointing to see her get a chance to come back, frankly, over if play like I can see Burton coming back, but why was Nicole or Michelle not given that chance? Because they would have been able to play such a better game.
Well, I've read a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere that the reason they voted Lil back in is because she would have annoyed them on the pre-jury trip, essentially.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's true.
And like she seems like a nice person, but like the constant need of reassurance would wear on me quickly.
That's it.
This was a fun episode.
This sure was.
So be sure to check out everything happening at the Reality Realm Network. Pit Stop Pals comes at you every Monday. Our show comes at you every Saturday.
And starting in the first week of August, new era challengers for those who, new generation challengers for those of you who are into MTV The Challenge and especially Battle of the New Eras. My co-host TT and I just recorded the first episode, which is our cast analysis. We'll be putting that out right before the preview show, so probably around the 1st, 2nd of August.
Do you guys know what day of the week that'll be coming out?
I'll talk to her about it, but we'll make an announcement on our social media before.
Also, before we sign off, just thank those of you that do keep track of Reality Realm stuff. Thank you guys. I know we don't have a ton of following, but we launched this network a couple months ago, I think, and it's like we have our 3rd show coming out on the network soon, which is really cool. This little thing you and I founded together is growing now, and we've got two people working with us on this thing we started. So
this thing that you asked me to start while I was drunk on a cruise ship.
Oh yeah, when I first texted you, do you want to start a whole network instead of just one show? And lots of hard work later, here we are. So thank you guys. Keep supporting our shows. We've got at least one more in the works that's coming out later, a lot later when the show it's about comes out. And we've got ideas for more that probably won't happen anytime soon, but we've got ideas.
If you're wondering if you're wondering when this show is gonna come out that we've been hinting at for a while and saying nothing about it, just be patient. It's gonna be a show where this podcast will have a bit of a Scottish theme.
Yeah. So
something that I love.
let's stop there before we give the whole thing away. With that being said, grab your torches, head back to camp. Bye, everyone.